St. Andrew's College is an affirming ministry of the United Church of Canada. We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. This verbal acknowledgement is one concrete action that symbolizes our commitment to the work of reconciliation.
In February of 2009, this was the media release that went out. As a college, St. Andrews has been committed to a long process of involving our faculty, students, staff, alumni, academic committee, board, and friends in study, worship, and discussion in order to be declared an affirming ministry of the United Church of Canada. In May of 2008, the board agreed that we ask Affirm United of the United Church of Canada to declare St. Andrew's College an affirming ministry. Affirm United declared St. Andrew's College an affirming ministry on February 7th, 2009. So we are coming up on 15 years of that. And we want to celebrate that. And we want to mark that as not only as St. Andrews, but as part of the STU with multiple commitments towards affirming in many different ways. And so we're starting off by looking at our histories and our trajectories. And so with that in mind, I'm going to invite Dr. Lynn Caldwell to kick us off and give us a historical overview of where we have been in St. Andrews in particular as we become affirming. Lynn, take it.
Okay, thanks, Sean. I'm going to share my screen, and as I talk, I'll have a PowerPoint scrolling along to keep me company and hopefully help you to follow through with some images. So I do want to say another thank you to everyone who's here participating and for the conversation, the reflection, and the year of intention, and especially to thank Marlene and Aaron and Trish. I'm really grateful to be here with you as presenters, and I look forward to the ways that we can bring our trajectories and reflections together, and all of the ways that just kind of happens as we come together in ways like this. And thanks, Sean and Keiko, for hosting and organizing not just tonight, but also a full series of the Year of Intention, and others who will likely be involved in that as well. And I also wanted to explicitly acknowledge Affirm United as an organization that was formed in the early 1980s to support and advocate for lesbian and gay members of the United Church of Canada, and that through these last decades has continued, has shifted, has changed, has queered in many ways as a resource to churches and individuals in just really all kinds of ways. And so that's the organization that to whom we're accountable in our designation as an affirming ministry. And I also wanted to think about, and so to say that I am thinking about the many organizations and individuals over many generations who do the strong work and have done the strong work to confront the absurdity that is discrimination, exclusion, stereotyping, and violence, that the many other forms of homophobic and transphobic harm. So I hope that what we do honors queer histories in politics and queer individuals who've poured their hearts and their lives into making queer life livable. So my interest in speaking to this tonight and to saying yes to the invitation comes both from my experience and commitment currently as a member of the St. Andrew's College faculty and the Saskatoon Theological Union faculty, and also as a St. Andrew's College alum who was a student here in the early 90s. So my return here to join faculty coincided really with the announcement and the declaration of becoming an affirming ministry. So I came in the fall of 2008, and as Sean shared, the public declaration was in 2009. And my time as a student between 1992 and 95 was a time that I experienced as involving a lot of theological and institutional and community affirmation of queer life. So I want to offer both of these as different but related glimpses of what we're reflecting on and working to rediscover, to sustain, or to deepen, or all of the kinds of things we might be about in a year of intention. So I'm not going to speak chronologically. And when Sean was introducing this as a historical overview and the grand view, it might be that, but I'm taking histories and trajectories in a kind of interpretive way. And what I'm offering are these two glimpses and not chronologically. So I'll start by talking about some of the happenings that I'm familiar with in the 2009 to 2023 time period, when the college has formally been an affirming ministry. And through that description will come some of the elements of the process that leads to that. And then I'm going to do just a really short little reminiscing about back in the day a bit and describe queer culture at the college from my experience in the 90s. So we did hear some of this in Sean's introduction, and what he read as the announcement is repeated on here. This is a poster that is about the service of celebration that happened in March to formally covenant and celebrate becoming an affirming ministry. So I wanted to draw attention to what Sean did read in the announcement, is that in announcing the becoming of an affirming ministry, there was an identification of a long process that explicitly of study, of worship, and discussion ahead of the declaration. And you could see that in the description. And I could say too, I wasn't at the college at the time of that, but I do know that the affirming ministry program has been designed particularly around congregations doing a period of study over time together. And in a college where there's always changing student bodies, the process itself needed to adapt to that. But it was a long process. And along with this announcement and the press release and the celebration, there would have been other kinds of announcements of this new status. And there was a piece in the college newsletter that I'm familiar with at the time that was written by Jordan Cantwell, who was a student of the college in 2009 and a part of that process. And she began the newsletter article with this quote: "What do you mean St. Andrews isn't affirming? Of course they are," and goes on to express surprise and hearing surprise that this declaration was something new in 2009. But it was, however, and the newsletter article goes on to say so, in 2009, a really particular form of public declaration and commitment that's very specific to the Affirm United process of learning about sexual and gender diversity, about homophobia, and especially about homophobia and heterosexism in churches and other Christian theological contexts. So the college would have been and was equipped by a kit full of resources and access to a consultant. So resources about human sexuality and about understanding the roots of anti-gay and anti-queer beliefs and practices really broadly. Some history of the United Church in relation to justice and inclusion, and resources that were particularly focused on the college's own context in theological education. And then the college, working with Affirm United, would have and did create or develop a continuing plan of action as part of the responsibility in making that declaration. So this was a piece of what was also shared publicly. And I know that in 2011 there was another bullet point added to indicate a commitment to web-based resources, also conveying the commitment to be affirming. So what I want to say, what occurs to me in thinking about this, is that in these past nearly 15 years, as Sean has said, of living out this declaration, those 15 years was that this plan of action unfolding. So this was written in 2009. It was a plan of action for the future life of the college, which we're still living and looking back upon. It was a plan to be affirming in every part of the college's life. And this year of intention in 2023, 24, including events like this, seems to me, even though it's not spelled out there, but pretty consistent with what the college committed to then. And it's an opportunity to consider, along with the other two colleges of the STU and drawing on their histories and commitments, what our plan is now. And 15 years is a pretty long, I mean, it kind of depends on perspective, but 15 years can be in some ways a pretty long and diverse time, lots of comings and goings in any institution, and the college included. So there's a lot to think about, to know, to remember, to analyze, to take into consideration. And it's the everyday, it's the particular of all of this that really matters, not just of what was imagined and committed to, but what has happened, the impacts on individual students, the interactions, the impacts on communities with which we relate as students and faculty. And so I hope, and it's what we're starting to do tonight too, that we can, during this year of intention, keep our minds kind of tuned to this diversity of experience as we're reflecting on histories and building new plans together. And so two other pieces just to highlight in terms of that 15-year time before I take us down memory lane to the 90s, so these are two pieces that I want to describe from this 15-year trajectory as an affirming ministry. And one is the recommitment practices of the college, and the other is the development of a new justice policy. So not to elevate these over anything else, but just to give another bit of overview of the affirming ministry process in particular. So it didn't happen every, whoops, just trying to move the video piece. It didn't happen every year, but there were several occasions that the college has had a practice of formally recommitting to the explicit commitments made in 2009. So at the top is a picture of the ceremony in 2009. There are two different pictures. So there's Laura Foos, who's there on behalf of Affirm, speaking to the chair of the Board of Regents at the time, and I think probably representative college council. And then some other images of events that have happened over time that were recommitments and opportunities to do education, and also like to recommit as the body of the college that we were on those different occasions. In the service of recommitment in 2018, which is this picture here, in the spring of 2018, we received the design of the banner that now hangs in the college chapel. And this was dedicated then the next fall in October of 2018. It was commissioned we commissioned Phyllis Baker, a fabric artist and an active member of Grosvenor Park United Church, to design and create this banner. And to putting the slide together was a reminder to me of a little bit of what was involved in that process as someone who is an artist and was really attentive to wanting to listen and give expression to ways that the college did understand our affirming commitment and how that reflects in our worship space. So there were lots of conversations, and it was a moment for some in the college to think and talk about the intent of images and space, and also of the particulars of the affirming commitment that we were living out. So and just to speak to the justice policy that's developed, in 2009, there was an existing policy on justice when the affirming ministry process happened. And that policy included a commitment to, so this is a quote, raising consciousness about the experience in church and society of persons who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, and to eliminating discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity at St. Andrew's College. So that's from the 1992 justice policy, which also had a statement explicitly saying that inclusive language was an attempt to do justice for all people, regardless of gender and sexual orientation. What I have here are some images of the more recent justice policy in 2021. So this policy was developed in recognition that the existing policy didn't specifically address racism or whiteness or colonialism. And so it was again revised and then developed also with more detailed attention to plans of action. And so in this way, the plan of action as an affirming ministry has become more intentionally part of ongoing institutional work to understand and address ideologies and cultures of exclusion and oppression that operate together. So just as an example out of this, in the description of practices, there's an express commitment to a college environment that works to understand and abolish systems and structures of oppression, including settler colonialism, white supremacy, gender exclusion, sexism, and heteropatriarchy. So this policy reflects shifting forms, I think, of institutional awareness and commitment to how things that lead to the absurdity of homophobia and transphobia are connected to things like sexism, classism, and ableism. So I got the 2-minute warning from Sean, and I'm going to invite you to come back with me to the 90s briefly. I want to offer a glimpse of St. Andrews from another era. And it's just a glimpse of a tight little window from a whole diversity of eras in the life of the college and the college's history of as a college and a college in which queer life has lived and sometimes been suppressed and sometimes thrived. And one of the things that I would say about, and I do, about much of what I was reading and talking and writing about and what I was wanting to shape my own life around as a seminary student in the 90s was written by lesbian feminist writers and particularly lesbian feminist theologians. Embodiment, grounding knowledge about things theological and experiences lived and felt, studying patriarchal and heteronormative texts as rooted in questionable cultures and forms of power were all themes and teachings that caught my attention and in which I was thriving and building my own confidence. It was in seminary that I came to learn about how the erotic, the female, the queer had been subjugated. And I also learned about questioning norms and giving attention to power and about theological traditions and teachings that did affirm human sexualities in the plural. And as I was reading these things, they weren't new. I was reading texts that had a history themselves, and I was being taught to read ancient texts as well. And I also note that in that time, I was a young person studying theology with classmates mostly older than myself. So as I say, that's a glimpse that I'm kind of rushing through, but wanted to give a glimpse. And I hope that this year and all the years to come will be ways for the college, along with the other 2 colleges and as the Saskatoon Theological Union, to honor, learn from, and respect queer life across our generations and throughout our theological traditions and histories, and of course beyond our own. Because one thing I often say in classrooms is that we're not the first or only ones to be reckoning with whatever it is that we're thinking about or studying. And I think that's true about being a college or colleges or a union of colleges in this moment. So I'm going to end there, and knowing that we're opening up to more conversation. And I want to say thanks again to you for the commitment to focus intentionally together on sexual orientation and gender identity as theological colleges. And I really look forward to more conversation tonight and ongoing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Excellent. And what a challenge to try and, do a summary of where we've been for over 15 years, because you're so right. The journey began before that. It was a process. And not only taking us through a bit of that journey, but also tying it into the wider questions of other forms of solidarity and anti-oppression work that the college and the whole STU has been involved with. So thank you for that whirlwind tour, and I'm sure there will be questions for you afterwards.
If you'd like to learn more about any of our programs, please reach out to the College Recruitment Officer. The link is in the video notes below. And do feel free to like and share this video to spread the word. Peace and blessings be with you.